report released by the Grattan Institute today says the answer to the housing crisis is to build up, not out, and has recommended governments unlock more high-density housing in high-demand areas. Brendan Coates is the co-author of the report and joins me now. Brendan, hello.
Good afternoon.
Some interesting ideas here that seem pretty logical. Just explain to us what your report has found specifically around this medium density, housing that needs to be in these key areas.
Thanks, Patricia. So we're in a world today where Australian cities are some of the least dense of their size in the world, and that's largely because the rules say no to allowing more gentle density as well as high density housing in our cities. So what we're recommending here is that we should be allowing 3-storey townhouses across all residentially zoned land in our major cities, as well as high density of 6+ stories around key transit hubs and commercial centres. And those changes would basically unlock an enormous amount of potential capacity for more housing, more than 1 million additional homes that could be profitably built today in Sydney alone. And ultimately, they are the solution to our housing crisis, to make housing cheaper, rents cheaper, and more people to be able to live where they want.
Zoning is normally a state and local government issue. So what's the role of the federal government? I mean, Claire O'Neil, as the housing minister, has tried to really pull as many levers as possible, but it's pretty hard, isn't it?
You're right, this is largely a state government issue. So the recommendations we principally make are for the state governments to basically reform their controls to do this. At the moment, they're basically ceding a lot of power in most states to local councils to both set the rules and then to basically enforce them through assessing development applications. And the problem with that is it means that they represent the issues, largely the interests of those that live in an area already, and those that would move into an area if more housing gets built don't get a say. But there is a role for the federal government as well, Patricia, and that is that they can basically incentivise the states to undertake these kind of reforms. The best way to do that is to extend what's called national competition policy, which is something that's been in existence for a couple of decades now, to basically pay the states if they make specific changes to their laws that we know are going to offer a big economic and social payoff. And there's few payoffs that are larger than reforming our restrictive planning rules in Australia.
What's your view on this 5% deposit scheme? Obviously, it has an impact on demand, on house prices. The government even admitted that in the election campaign when it committed to it. But Treasury figures are downplaying the impact so far. What's your view?
My view is that the scheme really did not need to be expanded in the way that the federal government has. So they've uncapped the scheme, so it's no longer has a limit of 50,000 places. They've uncapped the income limit so anyone can use it, and they've massively boosted the kinds of homes that you can get, that you can use the scheme to purchase. So $1.5 million in Sydney, $1 million in Brisbane. What that's meant is it's meant that people are using the scheme that frankly don't need it, that we're always going to be able to buy a house anyway. I do think the government is broadly correct when they say that the impact of the scheme on prices is probably pretty small. There are other things that are probably bigger drivers of house prices at the moment, particularly the fact that interest rates have come down by 0.75% since February. We know from previous work from the Reserve Bank that every 1% cut in interest rates is enough to raise house prices by about 8% over the following couple of years. But, it is a step in the wrong direction. It wasn't a necessary expansion, and it means that the government is basically supporting those people into the housing market that were probably going to buy anyway.
And there are other sort of pieces of news out on housing. There's been quite a focus on housing with the government really trying to hone in on this. There have been some improvements, but it still seems locked in some kind of roadblocks. What's your assessment of how we're travelling on trying to get more houses built?
I think we've seen really positive changes at the state level in New South Wales and Victoria. So Victoria's gone a long way to doing what we've actually recommended in the report out today. So you can build a 3-storey townhouse in most residentially zoned land in Melbourne today. And there's been some steps from the federal government that are positive, but the basic problem is we've seen cyclical conditions, higher interest rates over the last couple of years, a big increase in the cost of construction that has slowed the pace in the short term. So we're in a world where in the short term, we're not making great progress, for example, towards the government's goal of building 1.2 million homes over 5 years. We're hitting numbers like 188,000 homes over the year to August when we need to be hitting 240,000. But the direction of travel is going in the right way. And I think what we're suggesting here, Patricia, with the role of the federal government is it's probably time to say that the new homes bonus, the incentive payments the government's giving to the states for every house they build, it's not working because they're falling well short of those targets, and we need a different approach. And the approach we recommend is directly incentivise states to change their laws. that is an approach that's worked for 30 years, whereas paying the states for the flow of new housing that are affected by interest rates, whatever Donald Trump does in Washington and global economic conditions, is just not an approach that's been working so far.